Howdy, riders. Happy 2021. We made it. Welcome back to the first episode of season 4 of Ride Between the Wines. As you can see, we're still not actually riding in between the wines yet, but give it a couple more months and hopefully we'll be right back in that car. Very exciting season. Quite a few interviews that I've done over the last couple of months, as I don't do the podcast during October, November, December, because in the world of wine sales, even in this world, it's a little crazy. So happy to relaunch. Got some great episodes coming up, and starting off with a bang. Aurelio Montes Jr., super cool guy, awesome to talk to him, very down to earth, great wines. Him and his father, the Montes Winery, are iconic in Chile, very well known all over the world. And it was great to sit down with them for a few minutes. This is a longer episode because I've added a couple of cool things in here. So I'm going to put over here some time codes, although I would love you to watch the entire episode. Do not, if you want to jump around, I want you to be able to see where you can go. So we're going to kick right in with Aurelio right after this intro. And then the other things that we have is Chef Javier, who is from Ratio Restaurant, which is a great restaurant where you can try some of the Montes wines that we're going to talk about in this episode. And also, it opened up in the middle of the pandemic. If you're local to South Carolina, you should visit it out. If you are not, next time you're in town, if you ever travel again, check it out. Awesome, delicious food he's doing out there. Love it very much. And then finally, just in the spur of the moment, I decided to start a new segment with Ian Burch, who you may remember is the winemaker from Archery Summit, and we did an episode last year with him. But it's just going to be a segment I call Me and Ian, and we are going to be going out, or I'm going to be watching him go out, I guess, to the vineyards, maybe a little bit in the winery, and kind of taking us through the progression from January, Northern Hemisphere, dormant, not a heck of a lot going on outside of pruning we'll get to. And hopefully, if this goes well, we'll get to see it all the way until the juice turns into the deliciousness that they do so well. So that being said, that was a long intro. Buckle up. Let's ride.
The world we live in is an amazing one, full of passion, wonderment, and of course, fine wine. This is the story of one man's journey to fully understand and appreciate that world. So kick the tires and light the fires. It's time to ride between the wines.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome back. This is an awesome special guest. So I have Aurelio Montes Jr. here, who his father started the Montes Winery. We're going to talk about that. And he is the head and chief winemaker for the Montes wines. And I could not be more happy to have you with me. So thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to talk about what we're doing here down in Chile.
Well, so I'm very excited because I used to work with another distributor, and I guess when you all partnered with co-brand, so when I moved over here, I didn't have Montes wines anymore, and I was so happy when you partnered with co-brand so I could sell the wines again, because I've loved these wines for years. So it's very exciting for a relatively recent to get to start showing them out again, and they're just as good as they've ever been. Maybe if you could just start off and just give me a little bit of the Montes story, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, of course. Well, Montes story is quite a unique story. It's quite a special story. Why? Because in the 80s, the wine industry in Chile was almost collapsed. There was a lot of big wineries, only a few big wineries, all of them very focused on producing cheap wines, entry-level wines, great value wine, but very cheap. And there was a big campaign in the world against alcohol and tobacco. So the wine consumption went down quite fast. So the wineries were a little bit complicated. And my father, working for one of these big wineries, he realized that in Chile there was a lot of many places, many areas in Chile that the quality was amazing. So he realized, or he was thinking was, okay, why don't we change the image of Chile instead of being entry-level wines, we can put, you know, in a different level of quality, showing the world that Chile was, you know, as good as the best countries of the world. And he was so convinced that he was fired. his boss told him, "You are crazy. Who's gonna buy a premium wine from Chile?" So my father, with 5 kids, no money, he called 3 other friends and partners, and they built and they started with Montes. The special thing about Montes is that they started in the end of the 80s, in 1988. And the main 2 things that happened when they joined together, there was the 4 partners, they had 2 things in common. One, all of them were so passionate about wine, and second, an expert in different areas, marketing, financial area. One of them was the owner of a kind of garage winery, and my father, the winemaker. And the second thing in common, that they didn't have money at all. So they say, and that's the funniest part, they say how you can build a winery, and today one of the most premium wineries of Chile, being no one at the beginning. Well, they sold a car, they got some money from the family, so, and they started from zero with work, being passionate, and they proved to the world that in Chile we had the quality, and we have the quality to put a bottle of wine being more premium. So that's how we started. And since we started, we have been known as a pioneer winery. Why? Because we changed the way of thinking of Chile. We started talking about terroir, when at that time, who was talking about terroir? We don't care, volume, bring me grapes. Here, no, white grape from one region, red grape from another one. At the beginning was, first of all, that, white and red. Today, it's a specific Cabernet, Merlot, Syrah, whatever we want to plant, is located, and it's going to be planted in a very specific area. So since that time, we have been quite pioneer in planting new grapes, planting in extreme places. Like, for example, 2 years ago, we planted in the southern plantation of America, in an island, in the middle of nowhere, in the Patagonia, in the south of Chile. Remember that south for us means cooler, not warmer, cooler. So it's like planting in Alaska, more or less. So we planted there. Hopefully this year is going to be our first harvest. We're very happy. So all our history has been involved in this, looking for new things, new places, new style of wines, new grapes. So that's our history. And from my side, I studied winemaking. I moved to Australia. So I lived there for a while, working in a winery. Then I moved to California for one harvest, and then I worked for almost 10 years to a different winery in Chile for a competitor here in Chile. So I made all my mistakes there, and then I moved to Montes in 2007. And since that, I have been the wine director of the company.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. Yeah, tell me real quick. You don't have to go into a lot, but in this very far southern island that you've planted grapes on, what grapes have you planted?
Well, as you know, we don't know anything about that area when you talk about the grapes. So we did a kind of, it's only 4 acres, and we planted Pinot Gris, Gewürztraminer, Alvarinho, Riesling, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Sauvignon Blanc. So it's almost a garden of different grapes to see which one of them is going to work better than the other one, so we can plant more in the future. So it's the first stage.
Well, that's awesome, both for being fun, but also for you're probably getting ahead of eventual global warming by planting down there too, because that's going to be the next spot, I'm sure. So.
That's one of the main reasons why we decided to move down to the south, because as you know, global warming is something that it's happening. It's not a dream. It's a real
Right.
stuff. And we decided to go very south to really understand how the weather is changing and if we can grow grapes. To be honest with you, we don't know what kind of result we're gonna get. Maybe
Right.
nothing. Maybe it's gonna be impossible to grow grapes to grow grapes there.
Mhm.
But let's wait. We're having fun. We love
Well,
to go there.
well, I
So
know Monte, not just Chile, but Montes in particular, is known for very steep hillsides and high elevation stuff. Is in this island high elevation also, or where is that by comparison?
no, this if we talk about geography, this is a part of the continent that moved away
Uh-huh.
million years ago. So it's a quite flat. It's like rolling hills. You
That's
go
kind of
there,
what I
it's
was thinking.
so beautiful, beautiful landscape. It's it's like an England landscape, green, beautiful, uh, very small population there. In that island lives something like 100 people.
Oh
So
wow.
it's really the school. There's only 8 kids, and yeah, and the funny story about the kids is that I meet them one day, and most of them never ever have been out of the island, that small island.
Hmm.
So I invite them. So they took an airplane, first time ever, and I took them to Santiago. There's a big capital, a big city,
Uh-huh.
and then I took them to the winery. So the kids were, so happy to
Oh, it's
learn
fun.
about a different Chile for them.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Mm. So before we get into the wines, now Montes Alpha, we're both trying from the Montes Alpha line. And if I'm not misspeaking, that was the first premium line that your father made. Is that right? Was the Alpha?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And that's why it's alpha, being
Alpha.
tried to say leader, the first
Uh-huh.
one, the Montes, the first. So yeah, we took the risk, being more premium
Mhm.
with Montes Alpha, and the amazing story about behind this label is that everyone in Chile was looking to us to see. It's like when you see National Geographic, programs, when you see the news, these deers trying to cross the river. No one want to be the first because there's so many crocodiles around.
Uh-huh.
So here, all the industry was looking to us to see it's going to
What's
work or
going to
not.
happen? Yeah.
What's going to happen with this? So we jumped into the water, we swam, we crossed the river, and we told everyone, it wasn't that complicated. The world is prepared for us.
Uh-huh.
And then all the industry, wow, jumped into the water. Some of them were killed, didn't survive,
Yeah.
but most of them survived. And so for me, Montes Alpha is not only our first premium wine, also it's a piece of history of the Chilean industry. So that's why it's so important, for everyone, that all the winemakers that we live from Chile.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's iconic. And then I know that you since then have several other tiers that are both the entry tier, but also, progressing up in the steps to, Purple Angel. What's with the angels? I know that you're Catholic, your father's Catholic. Is there a reason there's an angel all over the place?
Yeah, but there's nothing related with religious reason.
Uh-huh.
It's the reason why is because one of my father partners, Mr. Douglas Murray, he was a guy. He passed away a few years ago, and he was a crazy guy. And this guy, as an example, he died a few years ago. Never ever used a computer. He always sent you, everything by hand.
Uh-huh.
He was the guy with the best memory ever seen in my life, and he was like a dictionary, or he knew almost about everything. So every time that he used to travel, he used to learn about every culture, and he realized that angels were located in almost every culture in the world. So he used to collect different type of angels from Asia, from America, from Europe. So his office was a kind of museum of angels. And he started getting almost obsessed about these angels. And he always used to carry small angels in his pocket, saying, "This is gonna be my guard angel."
Guardian. Okay.
And he had 3 car accidents. On one of them, he fell asleep, and he flew into a river, and he survived without any scratches. And he told us, "You know what?
Angel.
Angels are telling me something."
Uh-huh.
So we changed all the labels of Montes to angels, trying to say these angels are going to be our guard angels that are going to take care. And that's how it started. And now is our like logo that people recognize us through the angel. So it's really important for us.
Well, that I love it. I've always wondered that story. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
He was onto something. Well, speaking of Montes Alpha, let's get into this first one. And so this is, we both have the Alpha Chardonnay here.
Chardonnay, exactly. This Alpha. Can you check for me the DO that you have in your label? It's Casablanca or Aconcagua?
Aconcagua. Should it be Casablanca?
Depend on the year, because I want to check. But it's the same. Aconcagua is the biggest DO, and Casablanca it's inside. So we decided to change, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see here, but here says Aconcagua, and then in the top says Casablanca Vineyard.
Oh, yeah, that's what mine says. Yeah.
Okay. So this Chardonnay, it is a very important Chardonnay for us. It's made from a specific area in Chile called Casablanca. Casablanca is located a few miles from the ocean. So in Chile, that is quite different, for example, from Argentina. Why I'm telling you about Argentina? Because in Argentina, when you drink wine from Argentina, normally you think about altitude. You say, okay, and this vineyard, how high are located the vineyards? Because in Argentina, as higher you get, cooler the climate get. In Chile, we never talk about altitude. We talk about how far you are from the ocean Pacific. Our Pacific Ocean, it's really, really cold. So it's almost for Chilean people. It's when you jump into the water, you start yelling. It's so cold. But the good news about that is that all the breeze coming from the ocean into this valley, closer valley from the ocean, all the temperatures drop down, and the ripening process of the grapes are very slow. So when you want to get better acidity, freshness, vibrancy in the wines, get closer, talking about whites, but get closer to the ocean, and then you're gonna get the best. So this is a Chardonnay located in Casablanca, and my style of this wine in the past we used to make big Chardonnays, with very low acidity, very creamy, with a lot of a long aging in barrels, in French barrels. Well, today the style changed quite a lot. Today we have a really fresh, with amazing acidity Chardonnay. Then the aging that we use in this wine is only 35%. Very small amount of wine go into barrels, only for 12 months. So, 65% of the wine never touch oak, and we keep it in concrete tanks where you can get some micro oxygenation inside to make the wine more complex with better flavors and more drinkable at the end of the day. That's what I like.
Is this a response to the public? The change in style, is this a response to what people are looking for, or was it steered on by the kind of wine you want to drink?
It's a combination of both. In terms of we realize, first of all, that this heavy style we're talking about at the beginning of the 2000s, this heavy style was an amazing style for one glass of wine. So you have one glass and was, wow, full of flavor, but after one glass you were thinking about to drink a beer. I didn't want to drink more wine.
Right.
It was too heavy, not very friendly. And as a winemaker, I'm more drinker than winemaker. I love to drink, so I prefer this fresher style to make it more drinkable, to make it more easy, and to have more fun with the wines. So we changed it because we realized that the world was drinking more fresh wines, and also we like better style. This better style.
Wow, I love it. I agree with you. I'm right there with you.
So as you guys can smell, it's a wine that is very fresh. You can get some tropical fruit, some fresh peach, some pineapple in the back, with a touch of vanilla coming from the aging in French oak.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was also going to say there's a little bit more mallow on the nose than I was expecting. How much of that do you do? Is that about 35% like the oak, or is it?
No. Normally, it's funny to say, because what you're feeling, it's mainly the terroir, the soil. Because here we go in between 10 up to maximum 15% of mallow.
Oh, wow.
And some years, this year, we're having the same year, 2018 or 17. Which one you having now?
Oh, I have 17 actually.
Okay. Well, 17 was a little bit warm that year, so we decided to go with very small amount of malolactic, so only 10%. So that's why, because the year was warmer, so you get this creaminess coming from the terroir more than from the grape.
Interesting.
And that's why I always tell the new winemakers, don't try to copy other places like Burgundy, where they do 100% of malolactic fermentation, because the type of wine that we have there is completely different from what we have in Chile. In Chile, we have warmer weather, more light, so the creaminess, it's coming in the wine
anyway
by free.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you don't need to add more creaminess with the malolactic.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So now in the mouth, it's coming all the acidity, the freshness, how it moves in the mouth. So it's a wine, again, that invites you for a next sip and a next glass. That's what I like about this wine.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Yeah, I could drink a bottle of this, and also I think this is as pairing friendly as possible. I think this would go with anything I'm having for dinner.
Yeah, exactly. These are quite a versatile type of wine. Of course, if you make me choose, I will prefer to cook. I love to cook. The biggest part of my house is the kitchen. So, white fish, creamy type of fish with this, it's perfect. Only grill in the pan, put it for a few seconds, a little bit, and cook in the middle. With that one, it's beautiful. So really nice Chardonnay, because the seed is gonna melt, the creaminess of the fish.
Cuts right through it, yeah.
And it's gonna make a good combination.
Yeah, man, this is delicious.
So this is a wine that we macerate. Maybe it's a little bit technical, but we macerate a little bit, 8 hours, the skin with the juice. Normally, we don't macerate the grapes or the white grapes with the juice, because sometimes you get a bitterness that's not very friendly. But here in Casablanca, because of the weather, allowed us to macerate a little bit, maximum 8 hours, the juice with the skin, to give us, a better acidity, a better volume, and then we ferment it, and then we keep it in the tank and barrels, and we move the lees for 8-10 months before we release the wine. So it's It's a really nice process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a minute, 2 minutes later, my mouth is still watering. So it's definitely there. It's fantastic.
It's very true.
Well, let's move on because I know I've kept you a bit. This next wine is very interesting to me. This is why I wanted to do Malbec, because I think Malbec we think of as Argentina, and I don't think we think of it as Chile so much. And so it's very interesting that you make one. So can you tell me why you make it and how you do it and all that?
Well, as you know, maybe some people doesn't know this, but we also have a winery in Argentina, and I moved there a few years ago in Spain, and I spent 5 years living in Mendoza with my family, and to learn a lot, because if you want to learn deeply about a new region, even if we're very close, you need to go there and establish there to understand the culture, the weather, the climate, everything. And well, we, in the year 2002, we decided to start with some production of Malbecs in Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
And well, since that, we have been learning quite a lot about the weather, the styles, the altitude.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have a quite known Malbec from Argentina. And my father, and this is a real story, I was living there, and my father says, I'm very jealous. Everyone is talking about Malbec from Argentina, Malbec. I want to produce a Malbec here in Chile, something completely different. So if they play with the altitude, we are going to play with the ocean. So this Malbec is planted not as close as Casablanca, but closer than the normal red regions.
Mm-hmm.
We're closer to the ocean. So this Malbec is produced in a dry area, rolling hills,
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of influence, with some influence from the ocean, but all the winds that come from the ocean hits that vineyard. So it's quite windy. It's more extreme place to grow vines, especially red grapes.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to show the world that in Chile we also had some places, not like Argentina, but some places where you can produce a different style of Malbec, and I would say closer to the Cahors style
Mm-hmm.
than Argentina style. Argentina style is more juicy, sweeter. It's a different style. Here it's more spicy, tight. So it's a wine that's more with more electricity. How I always say is like putting your fingers in the electricity, like feeling that vibrancy in your mouth. So it's a different style that we always like to compare both, because are so different that and you say both are Malbecs, but from completely different regions. So makes a lot of fun.
And this is 100% Malbec too?
Exactly. Some years we use a little bit, a touch of Cabernet Sauvignon, depend on the finish of the wine, to increase a little bit the back of the wine. But depend on the year. Some years a little bit, some years zero, maximum 10% of Cabernet Sauvignon, or nothing.
Right.
But in between could be something.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm dying to taste it after hearing all that.
Yeah. So as you can see, first of all, Malbec is known for the color. So it's a huge, deep red color, almost blue. So very, very intense. You also have in 2017, no?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
17.
So here, when you smell the wine, you're gonna get, as I told you, first of all, a lot of black fruit. You're gonna get all that spiciness that I love from Marchihue, from the place where we plant the vines. Spicy, some rosemary, some black pepper. At the same time, this blueberry together, and of course here the how we age the wines completely different from the Chardonnay. Of course, is 100% of the wines go to French barrels, but only 1/3 of the wines go to new French oak. The rest, it's all barrels that we only want to be there because you get that micro oxygenation, and being in a small pot, all the decantation, how the wines clean is much better than in a big tank. So all of them go to barrels to age better.
And all the elements of spice that you're saying that we're sniffing in the aroma, are you attributing that to terroir, or are you attributing that to the amount of wood that you're using?
No, for me it's 99% terroir.
Okay.
Because before going into barrels, I taste the wines, and they're always spicy. So the type of barrels that I'm using here is a special toast that is medium long toast from a specific forest, that what they give to me is more sweetness, less spicy, because I don't want to add pepper to the pepper. Mm-hmm. It's only a little bit of touch of sweetness in this more spicy friend that played in your mouth.
I like that. That's good. Who else is doing this? Has anybody in Chile jumped on the Malbec train?
Very little amount of wineries decide to go into Malbec. One of the most known Malbec in Chile is View Winery. It's a medium small winery that they have been producing Malbec for many years. For other region, more in the central of Colchagua, so warmer climate, amazing Malbec. But in cooler climate, I think we're the only one.
Really?
So it's completely different, fun, and
yeah, it's completely different. I was just going to say, it was like, if I was tasting this blind, I don't know that I would come up with Malbec.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why we decided to produce. It's only 3,000 cases. It's a very small amount of the production is very small, but we wanted to produce this wine to show the world that you can try different type of Malbecs, because at the end, after living for 5 years in Mendoza, most of the wine that you can drink, most of the wine that people drink is Malbec. And if you eat, I don't know, meat every day, you get tired. So this is a good way to change. If you want to keep drinking Malbec, you can drink something different, something that can take you to another place, another type of wine, and have fun. At the end is that. I love to try wines. I try wines from all around the world every single day, and it's part of my learning process of opening every day my mind to be able to create new things and not be afraid of anything.
Well, I agree completely. I really look forward to trying some Chilean Gewürztraminer soon.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, we have one, but it's a sweet wine. It's a late harvest Gewürztraminer.
No, I want to try your Gewürztraminer from the island. Isn't that one of the ones down there?
That's going to be, hopefully it's going to work. We're cross fingers.
I believe in you. So. Well, Gali, I know I've kept you for a while. Thank you so much for your time. Your wines are delicious. I'm actually, at the end of this episode, I'm going to tag on at least one great restaurant where you can have some of these wines, and also you can find them obviously at your local bottle shops and everything else. But thanks so much, Aurelio. This is such a pleasure to have you over here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Keep safe, and thank you for the conversation.
Tick five. Welcome to the very first episode of Ride Between the Wines of 2021. We made it. I'm so happy. The episode you just listened to was with Aurelio Montes, and I am now speaking with a local chef owner of a restaurant that opened up in the middle of the pandemic. And you can come try the Aurelio Montes Alpha Montes Chard anytime you want to come in. They pour it by the glass and it's delicious. So that being said, I'm Chef Javier Uriarte. I feel like I'm rolling my tongue more than I need to.
Probably.
How you doing?
Good, doing pretty well.
Well, thank you for doing this. I'm super excited. If you haven't eaten here yet, the food is absolutely delicious. You guys did pick a very, I don't know if you picked it, but it's an interesting time to open up a restaurant. How are things going?
Yeah. I guess I did pick it, but it kind of just happened with the pandemic, I don't know if I would have been able to open actually without the pandemic, because I was so busy working at a Hendrix back in the day. So the time to open up kind of came with that. It was like I had the freedom, the time to like plan out my concept that I've had already in a while. Okay, now I can actually make it happen, and this is the time. Unfortunately, the time wasn't a good time for the world, but I was like, I'm gonna take advantage of it and make it happen now.
Well, the venue here, not that it's great for anybody to be spaced out as a business owner or at half capacity, but this is kind of by nature, it seems like it's easy to be well spaced here while still like, having a good feel, not sacrificing anything for the experience at all.
Right. Yeah. So the space itself, actually, when we were thinking about it when we were opening up, people kept asking, "Are you going to be distant from your table and stuff like that?" Actually, I was like, by nature, because the way that the tables are set and how big the tables are, they're already 6 feet apart from the start. So that wasn't even like a question. I was like, actually, they are already 6 feet apart. So that's amazing. And we have the patio out there that also sits people as well, and is heated, and it's got fireplaces. So that worked out well for us as well.
Awesome. But all right, well, so this is take 5. So the way it works is I just ask you 5 questions, and you give me 5 answers.
Cool.
Ready to jump in?
Got it.
Question number 1. This category is called A Rose by Any Other Name. Would it be sweet? So the question is ratio. Where'd that name come from? What does that mean?
So it means a lot of things, I guess. The most basic thing that it means for us here at the restaurant is that because I'm a chef, we focus a lot on ratios. So there's ratios in every ingredients and every recipes. There's a simple, basic. So you go back to like being super intricate, like this really plate that looks immaculate, looks delicious. If you dissect it, there's a perfect ratio to it. That's why it works. So that's what ratio meant to me, was that like I always so focused on like being this chef that I need to follow, like French cuisine and all this like big time like chefs, and I never thought about what do I just back to my roots and my heritage of what is Peruvian cooking. So that's when the ratio started working, and in my head I was like, I need to be more proud of where I'm from, the food that I make, what makes me like happy every day when I have some food. And that kind of just clicked in my head, and I was like, well, what does that mean to cooking? Well, it means going back to the basics. So that when like ratio, like the name came to be, and I was like, if we focus on the ratios of everything aspect in the restaurant, whether it's cooking, pouring wine, making cocktails, service, lighting, decor, everything like that. If you focus on the basic stuff, like the minimalist stuff in a sense, then the bigger picture will take care of itself. Because if you have a solid fundamentals on everything, then the bigger picture is always going to look great, no matter if you change a little bit, because you know that you had a great fundamental to everything else.
First, that makes perfect sense. And second, just so you know, that really does show in the food here and the whole experience. Like the thing that I like about your food, which is very along the lines of everything you're saying, is that it is just a ratio of very high quality, simple feeling ingredients that just come together to make a better whole. Like you can just taste the passion in what you're doing. Like I enjoy the food here very much.
You can taste the hours of me being here every day.
I can only picture in my head how long it takes for you to do every single empanada. Like I assume that you were back there the entire morning doing that stuff.
Yes, that's the first thing I do when I come in the morning, is make the filling and do the dough and make the empanadas. And I make about 3 trays, and usually we always run out. No matter how many I make, it's always out.
Well, that is my favorite. Those are Are you still doing the fall pot pie one?
Yeah,
now?
Chicken pot pie empanadas. Yeah, that was I think that was a good explanation too, of like having a good ratio of 2 different cultures come together. It's like empanadas are a thing that are from South America, especially from Peru and Argentina, and then chicken pot pie is such a huge southern dish. And I was like, why not put them together? And it works as almost like a handheld chicken pot pie, but we pair with all the things that are more Peruvian. So in a sense, you're having a very fusion, like comforting food. That even if you are not willing to try something that is really out there, you won't try this because you're like, oh, chicken pot pie. Yeah, I love that stuff. He doesn't like chicken pot pie.
This is a gateway pastry.
Right,
That's what
exactly.
we're getting you to the. I
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. All right, question number 2. Moving on. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So, for somebody who opened up this business in the middle of the 2020 pandemic, we are now sitting here, the first, second, something week of 2021.
Yes.
Tell me this, what are you looking forward to most in 2021?
I think 2021, I mean, what we look forward to is, I think that the whole world in general gets to a better sense of a daily basis, you know. I think especially, obviously, I want all my restaurant people, owners, workers, employees, all of them to be in a better world. You know, I think everyone, this industry is it's hard on people from the start already. There's the longer hours, you know, it takes a lot of time. So people who are in the industry are very dedicated to the job that they do, and I think they deserve more. And the pandemic obviously has not helped that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's not helped everybody already, but I think, you know, it's really impacted restaurants all over the world. And I would like to see that, you know, that something better comes out of it, whether it is that, you know, people are more willing to support because they're less afraid of the virus, or that the virus is slowly going away, and that we can always just come back and, you know, actually see people smile, actually see your server smile back at you when he's talking about the wines, the food, the aspect of the restaurant. I mean, that's, I think, you know, it's such a like emotional, like informational we have to go when I speak to you as a you know, as a chef to a guest, the same way as a guest to a server and stuff like that. You know, there's a lot of interaction happening, you know, physically.
Right.
That it's hard to express that with just your eyes. You
Yeah.
know, and I don't know if it's taking a toll on that, and like the atmosphere of a restaurant necessarily. You know, I would say that probably. You know, it would make sense that it would, you know, kind of like make it seem a little bit, a little more, you know, kind of weird to be talking to somebody that has a mask all the time.
Right.
But you know, obviously, it's something that we have to do, and we follow along every time. You know, it's you have to do your part to be better in the future. You know, and I think, as far as I'm concerned, we're doing everything we can to be a part of that solution that hopefully will come in this year, and that's really all we're hoping for. You know, and just making sure that, you know, people that come here are happy and they're enjoying themselves, and, you know, being safe, feeling secure that they're here as well. I mean, that's really all we can ask for, you know.
Yeah, I like that. It's so interesting that's, you know, out of all the different running a restaurant is one of the hardest things that I can imagine, anyways. And out of all the elements of ambiance, experience, food, you know, this is not something anybody was ever planning for. But I agree with you. Hopefully, we'll be back very soon to the full experience.
Yeah, you know, but also it's okay. It's okay to understand that, like, it will take a long time, and you know, and it's for a reason, you know, and that you can't push it, you can't force it, and you just have to live with it for now and make the best of it.
Roll with it.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, moving on to question 3. Question 3. The memories. I would like to know, from your years in the restaurant, whether it's this restaurant, Hendrix, any other restaurants, give me one of your favorite memories that you've had from restaurants.
Oh, one of my favorite memories. It probably, one of my favorite memories, I think, overall, I think it would have to be when I first came here to Colombia. I was 22 years old, about to turn 23. And then, you know, I just had left my parents' house, which in a Spanish culture, you don't do that. You don't live your parents' house until you're like married. 40, yeah, literally. And, you know, so I was the first one in my entire family that left at home to go somewhere else with this girlfriend at the time. You know, I had a different girlfriend at the time that she went to USC, and just followed her. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna change my life and come down here. So my favorite memory was that, like, I was here, and my first job, you know, I was trying to find a job, so I applied everywhere, literally. And I applied to Garibaldi's.
Okay.
So, and that was before I actually came down here. When I came down here, on my way down here in the car, I got a call from Garibaldi's, and they was like, hey, we'd like to interview you when you come in. So that was my first interview. So like, I was like, oh my god, we get a job, like awesome, like that's everything's working out perfect. Like, we find a place to live. Now I can get a job. So I walk in, and I meet with I believe the chef at the time was Nate Wiley. I'm not sure where he is right now, but I remember coming from I was working in DC at the time, making like $14-15 an hour just to be a line cook, and that was like the low pay for that. And so they were interviewing, and I was like, and he was like, so what would you like to just your pay to be? I was like, I think like 13, 14 would be a good start. And he was like, I can give you like 10 maybe. I was like, you know what? Like it's like I realized that we're in a different state. I was like, I don't know how things work here. So I said yes. I was like, I'll start from the bottom again, and we'll make my way up. And I remember then the next week I started working, and one day one of the fry cooks he called off, and he was like, hey. I was on pantry. He said, hey, can you also like do fries? He was like, we don't have a huge busy night. Can you do both? And I was like, yes. Like I've never said no. I was like, yes, yes, chef. Like I'll do it. And I remember we went through service, and he was like, hey man, good job, like awesome. And I stayed back, and I started cleaning everything, like trying to make it as fast as I can. Like I need to just prove myself to the chef that I can do what I can do, and more. And I remember he came back at the end of the night when everyone was gone. I was still cleaning, and he goes, hey man, I got you at 11.
Oh, that's great.
So I was like, from that moment on, I was like, hard work really pays off. And I think that was a very humbling experience for me, coming from DC, and like thought that I was so much better, and because I was making so much money. But the whole time it wasn't that. It was just the fact that like I was humble enough to start off from the bottom and show somebody else that I can do better, and that I made the serve better in the future. And he saw that, and that from that moment on, I've honestly never asked for a raise before, and I've just been I always just prove myself with my work and my ethic, and my work ethic about just working hard and being a good person overall. And I was so happy when that happened, because I was like, man, this is the coolest guy. It was like my second week in the South, in this random restaurant, and everybody's so nice. I'm like, that's awesome. Like I remember that's always gonna stick with me for the rest of my life. It's just like, it's not even like the money wise, like the fact that he recognized.
That you can see this,
and that's probably one of my most memorable memories in the restaurant, like starting off here in Colombia.
Oh, that's great. And it's interesting. I'm sure you're going to, through your career, be that guy for the next guy.
Yeah.
You really notice who back there is just busting it. And
I've done that before to myself, to other people that work for me. I'm like, hey, I bumped you up, whatever it is, because I saw that they really care, and I saw them in me, and like them and myself in me, like they can, they were like that person that I was when I was that young. It's just really cool to be able to give back something like that, and they really appreciate it and work that much harder for you, and then that can keep going, and that's something special, I think, to remember about.
I love that. That's a great one. Thank you. All right, question number 4 is called In a Galaxy Far, Far Away, and here it goes. I need to know, which character from the Star Wars universe do you most embody, and why?
Ooh.
You can take a second. This is a very...
say this is a hard one. I think everyone will always say the most famous one. I don't know. I think. I would say like Han Solo, just because he was a team player. He was always there to help everybody else out. He did his best. He wasn't worried about himself so much, but more about helping each other out and being able to I think that's why, maybe why most of the time I always think I'm like, oh man, I haven't eaten, but then I'm making food for everybody else. So even for my employees, I'm like, hey, make sure you eat this, like eat that, and then I'm like, I get home and I'm like, I'm starving. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't eat all day. You know, it's kind of like this nature in me that like I want to take care of everybody else. So maybe that's a good reason.
I mean, if it weren't for him, the Death Star would still be standing.
Yeah, exactly.
11th hour, dude. I like it. It's a good one. Did you see Solo? The Han Solo movie from a couple years ago?
No, I have not.
Let me tell you, it got a really bad rap. That movie was great. It's
Really?
worth going and watching.
Okay.
And
I'll watch it,
Danny,
for sure.
Danny Glover. What's his name?
Danny Glover?
Donald Glover. Excuse
Donald
me.
Glover,
There, Danny Glover is old school. Donald Glover is the Childish Gambino, but
Yes,
he
yeah.
plays Lando Calrissian, and he is
Oh.
phenomenal in it. So yeah, check it out at some point.
Oh my God,
Everybody,
I love
Solo.
him.
Oh yeah, he does a really good job. I even heard an interview when he was talking about how excited he was because like growing up, like the OG Lando is like his hero. Billy D. Williams is like, this is my guy, and like he looked at him, and then like when he got the phone call, he's like, I sat down, I ordered a pizza for myself, I called my dad, and I broke him the news that I'm going to be the new Lando. It was just so cool, and I think
How cool is that to play
crushed
like
it.
your like your
Yeah, to
like,
play like
childhood,
your person, like how so.
You don't get that very often.
All right, question number 5. Finish it up. This question is always called "Stick the Landing," and this is, although we've already covered a lot of it, but give me the I guess the final pitch. What makes Ratio so special, and why everybody should come out here and try it. Off of exit 82, Spears Creek Church Road. Go down like a half mile, take a left.
I think what makes Ratio so special is that, for one, it's been in unconsciously like working in my head for a long time, and I just never understood, because I think every chef's dream is to open their own place, to run their own place and all this stuff,
Yeah.
and you don't really get to that point until you get to that point. You have to work really hard. You have to be, when you're a sous chef, you have to work as a chef to be, like it's all like about like proving yourself.
Yeah.
And I think for me it was, I was always had this concept of like, oh, I'm up in my own place, but I never knew what it was gonna be like. I never understood like what my concept in my head was, like all these thoughts come together, and when I was thinking, when I got like, they were like, oh, you should come look at this place and maybe open your own place. I started thinking about it more in depth about like what this place would be like, and it just happened to be that I always thought about how can I make people try new things and feed them something healthy, something delicious, something that they can like go to their friends and be like, hey, I've had this awesome meal that you can only have in this place, really. And I started thinking about like the name of the restaurant and all this stuff. That was probably the hardest part. We didn't name the restaurant until like way after the concept was
Really?
already done,
Okay.
because it all makes sense. Like it was like, oh my God, all of this means Ratio, and after I said that, literally like everything else fell into place. Like I need to focus on little things. I need to focus on the basics of things and how I don't need to impress myself by like doing all this fancy like stuff on the plate, but more about the heart and soul and the comforting feeling that you have when you have a plate of food. It's like comfort food for the South is, it's like you always think about, oh, my mother used to make the best shimmer grits, my grandma used to make the best like collard greens. So for
Right.
me, it's the same thing, just in different cuisines. So, but I feel like the emotion is there. So if I can translate that emotion to you in a different cuisine, then I've done my job. And not only just creating something special, but something very unique. That you don't have to have the same cuisine to translate emotion, but you can have the same emotion in a plate
Right.
to translate that. And I think that's the beauty about, I think what I try to do at Ratio is that, I spend hours, like making a dish, coming up with the concept, coming up like how can I infuse like my culture and this culture and everything that I've had in the past into one plate. Not necessarily flavor wise, but like emotion wise. I want you to feel like, oh my God, that is so damn good, or like, wow, this reminds me of something that I had before when I was little. I want to take you back to the time, because whenever I have Peruvian food now that I make myself, I'm always like, oh my God, I remember exactly the same time that I was having this back in Peru, and that's what I want for everybody else to feel. And I think that's what I think that's what makes ratio special, is that you can relate to a lot of things, but at the same time you know when you read the menu you're like, I don't know any of this, but then you taste it, you're like, oh, I see what they're doing. And I was like, you're like, oh, I've had something similar to this before, but never like this, you know. So I think there's this like, you know, this like being like comfortably different in the sense of like the food and the atmosphere and the drinks and all of that, you know, like it's still being different, but not to be cool, but just because the way it happens, and it all comes down to just like having, you know, this emotion of like, I love this place, I love the food, I love the drinks, I love the way it looks, and you just keep thinking to yourself that you like it so much, and then a plate of food comes to your table and you taste it and you're like, wow, I feel like I'm at home almost, you know. And that's really what I wanted people to feel like, you know. It's just feel comfortable and feel that, you know, somebody is cooking with you. And that's exactly why we opened up the kitchen that you can actually see in the kitchen, because I want some people to know that there's someone going to be there cooking the food for you every time and making sure that it's perfect before it goes to your table.
Well, you guys succeed. It is fantastic. Everybody come out and try it if you haven't yet. Thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for doing that. I enjoyed it.
Well, yeah. So now that we're there, I'm gonna go ahead and just say, so people at home. So this is Ian Burch, and I will tag the episode we did together. Who knows when it was, because none of us know the time anymore. But I randomly had this idea this morning, and I absolutely love that he was so excited to jump right back onto it, which was we're going to try, you know, we can read in books and we can see about the life cycle, but it's very different if you're not actually out there. So what I'm going to try to do is at a couple points throughout the year, just go out in the vineyards virtually here with Ian and have him kind of take us to what's going on right now. So we are in Northern Hemisphere, which is dormancy, and we are at Archery Summit, which is Willamette Valley, Oregon. So that kind of puts us, you know, there's our intro.
That's right. We're very excited to do this. Like I love this. I mean, it's all about what you're making the wine with. You know, you can spin this way or that way, but if you have a delicious, perfect cluster coming into your winery, you're gonna make great wine. And you know, every once in a while you got to tinker, but it's all about the vineyard. It all starts here. Pruning is a very important time of year. We usually cut it into a few different classifications. Like we do large cuts, which have been done right here. So they've gone through and done a lot of these large cuts, and then they'll pull the brush, which is a pain in the butt. And I could try to wrestle with these with you, but all these tendrils are wrapped around the wire. So, you know, it takes some good heaving and hoeing. And when you're pruning's a very zen sort of time. Like you have to imagine what's going to happen through this growing season. And you also want to set yourself up for even the year after. The name of the game is to try to get this head down right below this wire. So this head is kind of creeping up, because as the vine grows over time, they start getting larger and larger. And the higher the head is, the less room you've got for your canopy to grow and act as like a curtain to collect the sunlight. So we like to keep the heads down. These vines are clearly old. This is like, you know, mid 90s, 1994 planting. You know, there's some dead pockets. There's some moss. None of the moss does anything to the vines. I'm not typically concerned, but it's interesting when you look at a vine now, you look at it in terms of like what you're going to leave to kind of burst out growth later in the year. And yeah, this vine, this is good, but I'm going to try to get one that has a little bit more. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So this is a beauty. So you've got, push all this to the side. So this is called a spur. And on this spur, you've got one bud.
Ian, Move your camera in general. If you can just move it slightly more to the right, I can see perfect. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
So you got one bud here that will shoot growth out, and you got another bud that will shoot growth out. And then this cane here, we're gonna lay it down to move all this stuff out. We're gonna move this down and essentially tie it off right here. And each one of these buds here, 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 these are all gonna shoot up. And as they shoot up, we're gonna close in the growth and either clip or just tease the growth in between the wires. So conversation I have right now with our vineyard team is how many buds can the vine hold? Because if you have too many buds sitting out, then you could jeopardize the health and the equilibrium of that vine. But with vines like this, because we're only directing the growth one way, so the growth is coming here, this vine's laying down here, so it's only going one way. It's unilateral. And these vines can handle a lot. You don't want to lay the cane down so that it's overlapping. So if you lay this cane down and it overlaps here, you're gonna have these buds shooting out growth, and you're gonna have the bud from the other cane, and that's where you get lots of congestion. And when you get congestion with vegetal growth, then you start getting into issues with mildew.
Okay.
You can start getting mildew on your succulent tissue.
Yeah.
Great. One other strong consideration is what to do with all the wood. So you'll see here, this row here, all of the canes, all of the wood that was pruned off the vine is in the center of the row. And we do it every other row so that we don't have to go through the trouble of flailing it in. So some operations like to take all the sticks out, put them at the end of the vine row and burn them. And other operations will go through with like, essentially it's called a flail. It's just like a large lawnmower and chip them all into the soil. And by chipping them in, you get the added benefit of it's mostly nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. So those are like three of the biggest, I'd say, like macronutrient contributors. But you also get all that nice sort of fibrous tissue that can break down and kind of feed microbial populations. But is a wood healthy? Like, do you have issues with, fungus? Are there any mold concerns? Like, if you flail that into the soil, are you increasing a negative inoculum? Like, should you bring it out and burn it? A lot of people think too that if you kind of flail them in, they're worried that we're going to release more potassium into the soil. And this soil, you'll see, I mean, it juxtaposes really nicely with the green, but this volcanic soil, when it gets wet, takes on a more maroon color. But one of the main attributes of the soil is heavy potassium. So people are like, all right, if I incorporate these cuttings, am I going to have even more potassium in the soil? And frankly, I don't think it contributes very much, because potassium is an extremely mobile cation. The plants need it to synthesize things, translocate sugar. But I think that because when it rains, if there's a lot of potassium, it generally washes through. And incorporating, I'd say, this woody material is giving your microbial population, a bunch to digest and a bunch to grow with. And I think the potassium consideration, to me, is not a very strong argument. And there's already so much, it's like, you're not going to be adding very much more. But that's all the kind of geeky stuff about pruning. I don't know if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Well, I did want to know, so our dormant stage started in what, December? Is that?
Yeah, so fall, you got the fruit off. The vines send up abscisic acid to the leaves, tell the leaves to drop off. And there's lots of carbohydrates in that woody tissue that held up the canopy and supported the fruit. So you use a really cold time of year from fall to precisely now. You get these really cold times, and it tells the vine to take all of that sort of storage, all those carbohydrates, to take them down to the roots, and then use that carbohydrate storage to push the buds in the spring. So, that dormant period just kind of like lets that natural flow happen. And, I think absent of that, like if you started pruning too soon, let's say you started pruning like a month after harvest, you chop off a lot of that carbohydrate storage.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then the vine's kind of starting in an unideal place. It doesn't have as much to like energize the vines because you didn't let it like have a little rest and have a little sleep.
Mm-hmm. Well, so that makes perfect sense. Other question. So now that you have, or you're in the process of pruning and training everything, what happens in the vineyard from now to bud break? What's the next?
The next one is tying down. So this vine here looks lovely. There's no junk, like all these little tendrils and little woody bits were cut off. So now we get to go through and you carefully bend. You try not to do it when it's too cold because the vines, the canes are really brittle and they'll break off. So now you put it down here and we tie on one end, and then we allow the vines to start growing. Past that, we'll flail. There's not a whole lot that we're going to be doing. As soon as we start to get 4 or 5 leaves out, we'll do either stylet oil spray to kill any mildew that's on the emerging buds, or pesky mites. We may do sulfur. So both are very organic ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. But now it's just kind of like the dance. We started in one spot last year with pruning. So you generally start there again, because you don't want to start in one vineyard in, this year and then, do it last the next. I feel like you try to give it as much time as possible to translocate all of that sugar down and all that carbohydrate. But I mean, this time of year is just kind of quiet for the vineyard crew. It's just sort of it's pruning time essentially, just like kind of the one track. But we're talking about planting next year, what that looks like. We've got some vines that are getting old, and it's like, how much longer are they going to last? Like, what do we do to keep the fruit level up, the crop level up? And it's like, let's start thinking about planting some young vines so that we can kind of hedge our bets. So I think it's a lot of planning and discussions this time of year outside of the pruning.
First of all, this is awesome. One last question, and then I'm gonna let you get off. You just showed a great set of how you're training it for coming up. What is the name of the training style that we're seeing on these right here?
So they're cane pruned, and we're training them unilaterally, so that each one of these canes boop, boop, lays down in sequence. So that one lays down, that one lays down, and it's only one side of the vine. Because you've got this bud that's going to grow up, and next year we'll prune that to lay down. And this, like the head placement on this is just gorgeous. So I mean, this is like idyllic right here. But this is unilaterally trained, cane pruned vine.
Ian, man, this has been great. Thank you so much. I look forward to checking in with you whenever you tell me the next thing is that we can see out there.
We could do this. We could do this as much as you want, bro.
I love it, man.
I'm always there for you. Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
And there you have it. Thank you so much for joining. I had so many people to thank for this. I always want to make sure that I at least start the season by thanking my employer, RNDC, because if it was not for them, I wouldn't be able to see all these cool people and do any of the cool stuff that I'm doing here. Thank you to you for watching and or listening. If you're listening, you can watch us on YouTube. If you're watching, you can listen to it on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get all your podcasts from. Please tell a friend. Please share. Please follow me on Facebook, Mike Wine Guy. Mike Wine Guy. Follow me on Instagram, Mike_Wine_Guy. Follow Right Between the Wines. Tell all your friends. And then as far as this episode, so many great people, so thank you, obviously, to Aurelio Montes. Thank you to Chef Javi. It definitely go sit down and try Ratio Restaurant if you haven't, and if you're in the area. It's delicious food. I'm very happy with it. And then finally, Ian Burch, hope to see you back again, maybe next week. We'll just have to see. Also join next week when I am interviewing Paula Cornell of Paula Cornell, whose father basically brought bubbly to California. So we'll talk about it next week. Until then, chin chin.